Hello and welcome to another tutorial. Today I'll be showing you how to make UK-based music in the style of the record label Swamp81. A link containing this project with the individual presets and samples for non-Ableton users is below the video, and I have Serum presets, samples and other project files available in the description as well. If you enjoyed this tutorial, give the video a like, subscribe and turn on bell notifications if you never want to miss a tutorial. If you have any suggestions for artists or labels you'd like me to cover in future, comment below. However, the best way to request tutorials is via my Discord as always, and the link to join is in the description. Shouts to everyone who has made suggestions so far. This project is influenced by Boddika's track Heat, but I've added in some elements inspired by Lamont as well. We have a slowish tempo of 125 BPM. We aren't really in a key, and the project has a chromatic feel, although the basses are rooted in G, and we are looking at an 8-bar loop. So let's start with the kick. Many of my recent tutorials feature 909 kicks, and this one is no different. I've tuned the kick to G, as you can see in the tuner. Then we have pedal and drum bus to fatten things up. The sub is turned on in the pedal, which helps emphasize the low end. On the drum bus, we have damping, since the kicks in Swamp81 tracks generally don't have much high end. Then we have an EQ8, removing very low frequencies and some boomy muddiness. Let's listen before and after in the mix. For the MIDI, you can see we have this sparse pattern inspired by Heat. For the clap, we just have an EQ8, removing low frequencies. The clap plays on the second and fourth beats of every bar. Next, we have a snare. And now in the context of the loop, no processing on the channel. For the high drums, we have a shaker, ride cymbal, tambourine, and a hi-hat. Most of these have had their ADSR envelopes tweaked, and all are on one voice or one shot modes. I noticed that in Heat, many of the higher drum samples sound tight, and this is something I have tried to recreate. Everything here is in a choke group as well. The hat has an EQ8 notching out an irritating frequency, and on the channel we have an EQ8 to remove any low end. For the MIDI, we have a pattern based around 16th notes. Next, we have the drum effects, which includes a hit and a breathy vocal with some reverb on the channel. I tend to prefer using reverbs on sends, but in this case, I wanted to use a slightly longer reverb, different to the one on send A. To help the drum effects sound roomier, I'd noticed the use of longer reverbs in some Swamp81 tracks. The MIDI isn't anything particularly interesting here. The next channel is the pitch percussion, but I'll play it alongside the drum effects since they complement one another. The pitch percussion contains classic Roland drum machine samples, which are popular with Swamp81's producers. For the pitch percussion, we have a cowbell, tom, and a clave. These have been tuned to their closest note. The tom, you may have heard, has some echo applied within the cell of the drum whack, and the clave has some EQ8 to remove an irritating frequency. As with the drum effects, we have reverb applied on the channel. All the MIDI in the drum group had a groove applied via the groove pool to humanize the pattern. Predictably, we're using one of the two-step grooves. I've used this one a lot, but I'd recommend using a variety of grooves within your productions, as reusing one or two can make them samey. However, for this video, the groove works well. Finally, within the group, we have this tuned effects hit. Which I put through an echo and resampled. And I've used the transposition modulation to increase the pitch over the duration of the sample. I then added more echoes with different rates. So you can see it says 1/16 and 1/32, and an EQ8 removing low frequencies. Again, we have some reverb on the channel. In terms of the drum group, you can see we have some drum bus applied, and this is to glue everything together. And then we have EQ8 to remove low frequencies. We also have reverb applied via Send A, utilizing this empty club preset, which you'll often see me using in videos. Next, we have the basses, all of which are monophonic. For all these basses, I'm using a multi-band processing technique, which I will link a more in-depth video explaining on the screen. I made this 808 in operator. For the sub layer, we have a single sine wave with a short decay and a pitch envelope applied. We have compression to make sure the sub is consistent, and an EQ3 splitting the frequency areas, in this case, the low band 120 Hertz. For the top, we have the same settings as the sub, but this time we've used the filter to add drive. Which, as you can hear, alters the sound dramatically. Then we have a saturator for more drive and an EQ3 to filter out the sub frequencies, which are of course being provided by the sub. The distortion on the filter and from the saturator create unpleasant high frequencies. So I've used an auto filter to remove these. Then we have an EQ8 notching out unwanted muddy frequencies and a utility. The utility is used to mute the 808 when the square bass is playing, and we have the same plugin on the square bass for the same reason. This is a good technique to use with multiple basses to stop them overlapping, as this can cause different bass frequencies to phase with one another or the buildup of one frequency. Let's have a look at the MIDI. We have octave jumps, which are a feature of Heat by Boddika. For the square bass, we will start with the top. We have a unison square wave, which has been taken down by 2 octaves. This patch is monophonic. We have a pluck-shaped envelope and a low-pass filter, with its cutoff being modulated by LFO1, which is on envelope mode. We also have drive applied on the filter. Then we go to the effects. We have the second filter, and this is to make the sound deeper. For the chains, we have split the mid and highs using EQ3 and monoed the mid band using the utility, so the bass isn't too wide. Then we have the sub, which has the same settings as the top bass, but with a single sine wave, and we don't have the first filter. We have a compressor to ensure consistency and an EQ3 to split the frequency areas. Then we have an EQ8 to remove unwanted muddiness and a utility ensuring the square bass doesn't overlap with the 808, which is something you can see here. Again, for the MIDI, we have these octave jumps. We have the top bass, which in some ways is acting more like a lead. It's very similar to the square bass, but this time we've only got the top layer and no sub. We've added an FM element using oscillator B and FM from B within oscillator A's warp menu. Oscillator B is a unison square wave, which has been taken up an octave. Then I split the frequencies using EQ3 and monoed the midband as I did with the square bass. On the channel, we have an EQ8 to remove some mid-range. And an EQ3, which is cutting low frequencies, so the top bass doesn't interfere with the other basses. For the MIDI, we have a pattern playing Gs and G sharps. On the basses group, we have an EQ to remove low rumble, and then finally a rack to allow me to sidechain the lowest frequencies of the bass using the kick. We also have some reverb applied via Sende. Next, we have the atmospheres. First, we have this breath effect, which is made using Serum's H breath noise in the noise oscillator, with the level being sidechained using LFO1 on trigger mode. On the channel, we have an auto filter with the LFO applied to sweep the frequencies around. For the noise effects, we have the ARP white noise instead of the H breath, and that's the only difference between the patches. On the channel, we have a bandpass filter this time and a utility just to turn the sound down a bit. Both of these patches are playing one long extended note. Then we have the third layer, which is the Vox effects. which is from an old jungle sample. And we just have some EQ, removing some irritating frequencies. On the Atmos group, we have a drum bus with drive and damping applied, some chorus to add width and detuning, and an EQ8 to remove unwanted low frequencies. As with the other groups, we have reverb applied via Send A as well. I noticed this type of ambience in Heat, and this is my attempt at emulating it. Then we have our 2 sets of vocal chops. So this first O Vox is melodic, and this second talk Vox is spoken. There's nothing on the O Vox channel, but on the spoken Vox, we have a nice dubby echo. On the Vox group, we have a saturator to add character, EQ8 to remove unwanted lows, and a chorus, and then again, reverb via Send A. And there you have it. Hope you enjoyed the video, and I'm very grateful for all the support everyone's shown towards the channel. I'll see you in the next one.